Okay, whose report do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with Dad's report, Thomas's report, because it's the most interesting result, I think.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, just give me 1 second. And Thomas. Okay, okay. So I'll just share it on the screen. I don't know, maybe kind of best to ask Thomas what he thought about it. Maybe kind of to start off with that.
I mean, Thomas is pretty happy about it.
Okay. Okay. Were you surprised at all to see it be this low?
I was surprised to see it this low, and I'm not sure how that's possible. I mean, he does a lot of good things on a daily basis, but to get
Mm-hmm.
this score is remarkable. I want to know how this is possible. Is it accurate? I mean, what's going on here?
Okay, can you tell me a bit more about him? I mean, it's difficult to
I
make
mean,
sense
Dad
of it without.
Dad lives a super healthy lifestyle. He never eats any junk food. He never goes out to eat. He just eats super clean, like fish, like grass-fed beef, vegetables, no sugar. He has coffee
Hmm.
maybe once a day, on occasion, if that. No alcohol whatsoever. Doesn't smoke. He exercises every day. His routine is a cold plunge, and then he works out at my gym, and then he does a
Okay.
sauna every day.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything that he doesn't do, or you think he does poorly, or you think he does awfully wrong?
He does everything perfectly. He takes vitamins. He also does growth hormone, a little bit of growth hormone at night, like 1 unit or two
Okay.
units.
Okay.
Other than that, he doesn't take medication. He takes a little DHEA, I think, a little DHEA, right? And a little pregnenolone and a little progesterone at night for sleep.
Okay, fine. So just go back to these all these things that he takes. So growth hormone, so let's just see. So he tested end of March this year. How long has he been taking the growth hormone
A
for?
growth hormone at least 2 years now, right, Dad? Yeah, over 2 years.
Okay, 2 years. Okay. So you also said a bit of pregnenolone, a bit of DHEA, a bit of progesterone.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Dad, do you take NP thyroid still?
Yes, in the morning.
Yes, in the morning, a low dose, I think 30 milligrams or 60 milligrams.
Okay,
It's 90.
okay.
90. Okay, you take 90. Okay.
90. Okay, okay. Have you, Thomas, ever taken anything like metformin or rapamycin or anything like that?
But no, I
No.
have not.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Um, and supplement wise, sorry, so you said multivitamin, any other things like, I don't know, different NAD precursors or spermidine or
No, Dad, you take
I don't know,
magnesium, you
nutrition.
take glycine, do you take any NAC? Mom, we can't hear you, but Dad, can you speak? Can you take any NAC, Dad?
I've been taking some NAC,
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
but
Okay.
currently not. But at the test time I did, that's what it's important.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
I did.
the important thing about the timing, which is what I'm trying to ask you about, is what had happened for about 3 to 4 months before you took the test.
Okay,
So everything that you were doing or taking from, say, November to March time is what's important because that's what the test captures.
right. Yeah, I was taking all the vitamins
Okay.
from B vitamins, C.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One
Okay.
second, I need to change.
Okay, that's fine. He's just going to do something. Okay, so obviously, Stefan, he is doing a lot of the good things, right? So, I think definitely. So we can go when he's back, when Thomas is back. We can now go through.
Yes, I'm back again. We had an echo, uh,
That's okay.
since I'm in another room.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
so I was taking all the vitamins. I'm taking all the from A to egg to all the B's and uh, in our glycine.
You were taking NR as well, right?
Yes, in
Nicotinic.
our
Okay.
NAC,
Okay. Okay. And
DHGH.
yeah.
I think that was mentioned already.
Yeah. Okay. And health-wise, do you have to see some kind of a specialty doctor for something, or are you generally healthy?
He just sees me primarily. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no over. Uh,
Okay. Okay. Um, and if you look at your family, so that would be, I guess, your father and grandfather and the mother's side, are there any particularly long-living individuals?
yes, the whole on mother's side, they're still uncles are still alive. They're way in the 90s.
Hmm.
Uh, my mom reached age 90,
Okay.
92.
Solid. Your dad, was he healthy?
He he reached age 85, almost
Hmm.
86.
Okay. And are there any diseases or any conditions that tend to run in the family in different generations, which includes you, I guess, Stefan, as well?
No, not really. There's no
Okay.
precondition.
Okay. Okay. Um, did you, Thomas, maybe by any chance do any other kind of, we can say, like longevity metrics? I don't know if you've ever measured things like your VO2 max, or if you look at your telomere length or DNA methylation.
I think this is the
No.
first age
And
test we've done.
yeah, this is the first one.
Okay, 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 fine. Fine. So what I suggest we do now is we go through this breakdown, and I'll tell you which of the things that you told me affects one of each one of these markers. I think my kind of overall impression right now is that obviously you seem to be a very healthy, man in his early 60s, so that is definitely what it is. And I would say some of these things that you take, which we'll also see through the breakdown, especially the ones that target hormonal optimization, I would say they tend to be the crucial things that make changes to these glycans, because glycans are very sensitive to that, especially things like thyroid support, the growth hormone, even a bit of pregnenolone as well, which is something that we see makes a difference. DHEAS, yeah, yes or no? I'm not really convinced by that one. Um, so if we start off with the first metric, that would be this shield number. So five of these metrics, the top three, so shield, youth, and mature, actually make up your score. I'll just make them a bit bigger. So they're the most important ones. And in all three of them, you basically perform exceptionally well. With the first two, you want this percentile ranking, which what 95 and 89 are, you want that to be as high as possible. That basically these percentile rankings mean there you're standing when we compare you against men your age. So with the first one, you're essentially outperforming 89% of men your age. Sorry, 95% of men your age. And with the second one, you're outperforming 89% of men your age. The first one has a lot to do with the quality of food you eat and the supplementation. So I don't know. I mean, we didn't really talk about your food and diet, but even if that wasn't optimized, our experiences that with the combination of some of the things you take, like especially NR, which is something that we tested that has quite a positive effect on this shield. That's something that would make that shield higher. So this first marker is basically the best it could possibly be. That means that the current combination of, or the combination that you were taking of the different supplements and the food that you were eating, for the 3, 4 months before you tested was basically perfect for you. Um, the second youth marker, that's the one that has a lot to do with hormones. And here I would definitely say, and this is something that we have seen over and over again, with even just a tiny bit of a dose of a growth hormone or pregnenolone, especially in men, because in women, and we'll talk about your wife's report later, In women, it's a bit different. We see here estrogen has kind of the main role to play. In men, that would be testosterone. I don't know if you've ever taken testosterone replacement.
His,
No, I
No?
have not.
his testosterone
Okay,
level has always
okay,
been very good, naturally, like a total
okay.
of above 700, 800, and then a free of about 20, which is very good according to that lab reference range.
Yeah, okay, okay. So that definitely also makes sense. I mean, I guess what we do see, I can tell you about men who don't have such good testosterone when we optimize it, so that's somewhere in the mid-range of the optimal range. That makes also quite a big difference. Um, so yeah, so I would say this is kind of this youth reflects your hormonal status. Um, Mature is the last out of these three, which are, as I said, the core ones. So this one, you want this percentile ranking to be as low as possible. So it's the opposite to the first two, because this is a pro-inflammatory marker. So here again, you're in the top 15% of men your age. This one has a lot to do with metabolic health and body composition. So what I mean by metabolic health, and I don't know, maybe Stefan, you can tell me if you measured any of these for your dad. So things like insulin sensitivity, HbA1c, is that something that you know the
Yeah, yeah,
numbers of?
his insulin is fantastic. His insulin fasting is around 2.5. His A1C is low. It's about 5.3, 5.4.
Okay, okay, perfect. The other kind of component here that we see, especially in men, which makes it different to this mature, is blood pressure. I would think that his blood pressure regulation is okay as well.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. And the third thing that can make difference is body composition. So I don't know if you've done a kind of like an in-body or a DEXA for Thomas.
Yeah, you were doing some of those at the conference. You got a pretty good score, I believe. I mean, he's very muscular. He's very lean.
Okay.
Remember what your body fat percentage was at the last conference we went to?
Oh, I need to look that up. Sorry, I don't have that, but it was very low.
Okay. And I would, yeah, and obviously muscle mass, fat mass, and that visceral fat percentage and
Yeah,
number
he's
is
very strong. Last
also
night he
important.
did 11 strict pull-ups at my gym.
Okay, well, wow. So you see, I'm actually not that surprised at all. Now, I mean, obviously, it is always a bit shocking when you see somebody who has such a drastic difference between the chronological and biological age. So even now, after I've looked at thousands of different reports, but I think based on everything they told me, I would say to some extent that having a lot lower GlycanAge does make sense in your case. And so yeah, I think really is a combination of all the different factors here that we talked about so far. Um, the last two markers, so this median one, you see that. So here I would not look at the percentile ranking and take that as a face value because it's a bit more complex than what we can show you in the report. But ideally, this median should be anywhere where this green zone of the diagram is. So it shouldn't be too low and shouldn't be high. So you're kind of setting where it should be. I'm trying to say this. So I'm going to try and say this in sort of in a very straightforward manner, and that is this median number tells you about the genetics behind these glycans. So um, based on this, I would say you do have favorable genetics when it comes to glycan glycan making process. We don't really, so we have done some research trying to understand whether that those genes that regulate that also have anything, something or anything to do with, we can say, generally speaking, longevity genes. We don't have an answer to that effect yet. But yes, from glycan point of view, genetics are in your favor. Um, the only marker which is, we can say, maybe not so good because others seem really good is this lifestyle one, which, yeah, bear in mind this lifestyle name is probably not the best choice now looking back. This one has to do with some of the lifestyle aspects, and that would mainly be stress management, sleep. Sometimes also we do see that gut health, if there is some form of dysbiosis and gut microbiome not being happy, that can also have a negative effect. So you are basically average for your age, which is not bad at all, but it's not as good, as I said, as all the other markers.
That makes
I don't
sense.
know. So does it
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah, his sleep isn't as best. We've tried a lot for his sleep, but it could still be a lot better.
Okay. Would you say, Thomas, that's your kind of your perception of sleep, or is it both your perception and if you are measuring your sleep?
Yeah, it matches up. I do have occasionally still issues with sleep, and my stress level is also high.
Okay. Is that something that you are, I guess, working on and trying to manage a bit
Uh,
better?
exactly, I'm working on it. But
Okay.
so far, no, I haven't really made. Uh, I haven't made some progress,
Okay.
but there's still a lot of room
Okay.
to improve.
Okay. Okay. So in a way, this result then sort of makes sense. And
It
gut
does.
health wise, have you done any testing for him, Stefan?
Blood markers, for the most part.
Uh,
Gut.
Oh,
no,
gut.
gut.
Oh, gut. No, we should do that next. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that
I
would
agree.
be, yeah, more so because if you're saying that the stress management, sleep, all of that, I think if that's something that you haven't explored based on this lifestyle marker, that would be, I would say probably that's kind of, if there was one thing to do based on this report, I would go for that. I don't know if you use any specific tests or you kind of do
Yeah, there's a lot of
whatever you.
different ones I do. I like looking at blood markers of gut permeability and food
Oh
sensitivity.
yeah,
That's a really
yeah,
good one.
yeah,
Of course, the stool microbiome analysis is a good one as well.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, all of that. I would say definitely things like zonulin to check there is no leaky gut, plus then the microbiome and the parasites and viruses and okay, yeah. I think that sounds like a good next step to do. Um,
We should.
okay.
There's a competitor to your company that has a ranking board, a leaderboard on the globe of. Do you guys have a leaderboard we can put them on?
No, no, we don't have a leaderboard, but what we will probably be getting to that point because currently we are working on because this is what people ask. We're basically working on exactly telling you where you are positioned within the peer group. So I guess once we have that list, then that's going to be quite a lot of work to do because we've tested like 250,000 people. At that point, then we can, I guess, have the leaderboard. Yeah,
Yeah, I think to make it a
that's a
game,
good
to
idea.
gamify longevity,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
would be
yeah,
very
yeah,
fun.
yeah. True, true.
Hmm.
Um, Okay,
Yes.
let's see. So there is another part of the report. I don't know, Stefan, if you've seen that, but that's this kind of disease overlap a bit. I don't know if you had the chance to look at this before.
Yeah, I took a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of also perfect for your dad, apart from the last one, which I'll tell you a bit about. But essentially, just also for you, Thomas, and Len, for you to understand. So what we decided to do, apart from just telling you about the biological age bit, is that we can use these lichens. Well, we now have the evidence that showed us that we can use these lichens to see for some of these diseases how they change, so what the pattern of changes, and then we compare your blood sample against the blood sample of people who actually ended up having one of these conditions. Uh, for the only thing that I don't think it still says in the report, which is important, is that for the cardiovascular group of diseases and conditions, we're talking about a predictive risk. So this is the risk in the future based on the current data that we have from you. Everything else is kind of set for right now, so present time. And so we use this word overlap. So simply what we are doing is we are really kind of comparing, as I said, your blood sample to patient's blood sample, and then we're looking for similarities. If there are a lot of similarities, then there will be like kind of, so there is a traffic light system. If there is a lot of similarities, then there will be like a red flag saying, there is quite some overlap. You should look into this. If there are no similarities, then you'll get what Thomas got for a majority of things here, which will be a green light. And then if there is some minor overlap, which is not really relevant, so maybe just, I guess the relevance depends now on the person and on the history, then they will get this yellow light. Everything is great in your case, so no overlaps at all. This last one, which is for COPD, which is the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This one, many people get a yellow light having never smoked in their life, or never lived with a smoker. One of the reasons we're kind of how we're trying to explain this sometimes has to do with some other environmental exposures. So like living in, like urban areas where there is a lot of air pollution. The other explanation is we see people who might have had like asthma when they were kids. So I don't know if like, have you ever had issues with your lungs in the past, Thomas?
Yes, I did have as a kid. I had frequent pneumonia.
Okay. And then when you kind of grew up, everything just settled on its own?
Yes, I changed my diet at age 18 and
Okay.
had no longer pulmonary issues.
Okay. Okay, so that's another kind of interesting thing about lungs and glycans, and that seems to be the only part in the body to be a really bad smoker in the past and they stopped smoking, they still get this tick for the COPD. So for some reason, that inflammation, whether that's because it stays in the lungs or for some other reason, we don't really understand that now, that can be reflected. So that's probably something that's a remnant of your previous history as a child and adolescent.
That makes sense. Maybe that is there's still there's some damage
Some damage, and if
from.
you had a lot of pneumonia episodes, could be some residual scarring, which doesn't have a clinical effect on you, but that's something that, yeah, the lungs remember in a sense, and yeah, maybe lichens remember as well.
Not clear. I'm not clear on the ranking or the rating here. Zero
Yeah,
over
so the
one,
numbers,
one
yeah.
over
So the second number is kind of the number of these glycan structures that we see change in these diseases. So in somebody, for example, who has type 2 diabetes, uh, 5 of their glycan types structures will be different, will be looking different in comparison to somebody who doesn't have diabetes. So that's the number 5. The first number is how many different in but 4 of them were fine. And then overall, this wasn't a statistically relevant change for you. Uh, which is kind of the cholesterol story. You had 0 similarities when we compared your sample to people who actually had a big issue with triglycerides and cholesterol. So the first one is your number of how many glycan structures kind of look slightly different in your case. And then the second number is how many of them had to look very different for you to have a disease based on these glycans.
So the first one is like a mark, a glycan that is diverting from the normal.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Yeah.
number
And then
of it on and the second number is the number of glycan signatures you're looking at
exactly.
for
And
this.
how many of them are actually different in somebody who has that disease. Okay. So we saw, for example, just going back to that to diabetes. So in people who have type 2 diabetes, we know that 5 of them look very different to what when we compare them to people who don't
I
have
see.
diabetes. In your case, only one of them looks slightly different. but not too different. And also it's 1 out of 5. So based on our algorithm, that's just not something that's significant. Okay, cool. Any other questions about this bit, Thomas or Stefan?
Yeah, it's interesting. The hypertension is marked. I did have an issue with hypertension when I was 14. Severe
Okay,
hypertension.
14, 1-4.
1-4.
Wow. And then just went away.
It went away, and it primarily stayed away when I changed my diet at age 18. I have I must have also changed my diet at age 14 somehow, at least partially, for it to go away.
Okay, interesting.
So I had like a
Interesting. So yeah, so
200,
but
over 200, 220 to something
okay.
ratio. And so there's an indicator here. I see a 1 for hypertension out of
Yeah,
3.
1 out of 3.
The metabolic, I do have uh, issues when I eat something that is very sweet. I
Mm-hmm.
had uh, I had the monitor on me, so when I just
Okay.
eat some blueberries, I do spike,
Okay.
uh, and it takes a while to settle down.
Okay, but only
It
with
takes like
certain
a
foods, right?
yes, like that might take a half an hour to settle down.
Yeah, I think, I don't think there is a person in this world whose sugar doesn't spike in response to something. I think it's more about obviously you knowing that or not knowing that, and then, what kind of food you eat and how you modify your diet based on that. But yeah, everything else here looks completely fine.
Okay, that looks good. Although the autoimmune has some indication there. It's 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5.
But it's yeah, none of that. So if there was, so even, sometimes you can have a lower number and you could get, technically speaking, like marker, but in your case, none of that is significant. So um, this is really nice to look at. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I had experienced already some issues with my joints. They all
mhm.
went away when I
Okay.
started doing
Yep.
cold plunge, and I do cold plunge every day.
Yep.
So if I
Yep.
don't do it for a while, I do feel some some time of discomfort in the joints, which could be a onset of
Mm, something.
rheumatoid
Yeah.
arthritis.
Yep. Okay, so let's move on to Lynn's in the interest of time,
Very
so
good.
we have time
Thank
to
you.
cover everything.
Appreciate
Not
it.
a problem at all.
Thank you.
So I'll just close this one and then I'll open up. And maybe Lynn, you can. Sorry.
Yeah, Mom, your audio is
Yeah.
very bad. You may have to switch to
Yeah.
dad's computer.
Yeah. We can't hear you very well, I'm afraid. Okay, let's see if it's more better.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay. Can you hear us now, Lynn?
I can't, thanks.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So what did you think of your result?
I was shocked at how bad it was. I'd taken another test, I don't know, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it also said that I was exactly my age at the time, and I do very similar to what Thomas does. So it's amazing to me that it's so bad. I take a lot of water soluble vitamins in the morning. I try to limit my carb. I do a lot of dead hanging. I can dead hang for a minute and a half. I ice plunge and I sauna daily. We try to take a lot of walks. Yeah. So yeah.
That's
I have no visceral fat. I mean, just none, none to speak of.
Okay. And how is your health otherwise? Any major health issues so far in life?
I could, I say I could have more energy. That would be good. And I mean, I always notice that if I eat too much carb, then my mood is bad. So if I stick to very low carb and fish, my mood is euphoric.
Mm-hmm.
And I can achieve that, and I do that. Um, I I definitely find I'm definitely very sensitive to different things I eat, and somehow I need to turn this into anti-aging. I don't know.
In what sense are you sensitive to, as in like in terms of digestion or?
Like I found starting in December that my throat was hurting around long COVID people
Mm-hmm.
um, until I finally cut out all nuts. Um, so, I mean, I don't catch COVID, I don't catch flu. So, I mean, my immune system is great. I thought I'd do really great on the GlycanAge test because I'll go chat with you if you have the latest COVID and I won't catch it. But I did feel that my throat was hurting around the long COVID people, and I was
Mm-hmm.
able to get rid of that. That's why I'm still a little hoarse right now from that. It was lasting 2 months, but
Mm.
it doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm not um, draining from the adenoids. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe that had an effect on the test that I had just recently cut out the nuts and was getting over that whatever it was infection of the
Yeah,
adenoids. I don't know.
potentially. I mean, um, nuts more than the infection, because I guess for for any kind of a viral or bacterial infection to have the effect on on the result, it either has to be something really nasty that lasted for a long time. And in case of bacterial infection, something you had to take a course or two of antibiotics for. For viral stuff, so we did look at COVID, and we only saw that people who actually had it very severely, meaning like requiring, for example, oxygen support and things like that, their glycans changed in the long run. I'm not saying that they didn't change. So I'm not saying that people who had it not so badly that glycans didn't change at all, but they didn't change and then stay changed. So I guess it also kind of depends on which period of your life, around the infection we actually captured. But in terms of food sensitivities, I guess yeah, that is more likely, and that's something that we have seen in practice. Um, okay, let me just go to this page where we see the breakdown. So this is the first one. Okay, so let's go through it one by one, and there are some differences between you and Thomas, so that's going to be interesting to see how we explain that. So as I don't know if you were following what we were when we were talking about Thomas's report, but there are five of these metrics, and the first three are the core ones because they make up your score essentially. So the first one should be, so this number, this percentile ranking should be as high as possible out of 100, and yours is pretty good. This one has to do with the food and supplementation. So here you are, performing really well, which I kind of would say makes sense, because unless, I don't know, if you have a pretty similar diet to Thomas's, then I would kind of think that would, and you live in the same environment, then that would make a lot of sense. Um, I was just gonna ask, so supplementation wise, is there something you changed, added, or took out of your like regular sort of supplementation regime in the sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 months? before the test?
Before the test, I switched to a high omega-3 diet.
Okay.
And then I don't think I'd completely cut out all the nuts. I just switched to no omega-6. I had switched to macadamia and walnuts, but then I found out I had to get rid of those too. And when I had switched to the high omega-3 diet, I had to reduce my hormones because I became too sensitive to all of them. So I was doing a lot of changes there.
Okay. So high omega-3s, that's an interesting one, which usually in most people who are otherwise healthy can have quite a profound effect, not just on this shield marker, but also on the lifestyle marker, which, as we see in your case, we'll get to that one as the last one, but in your case is quite good. So yeah, I don't know how much of an effect that specific intervention had on this lifestyle, because we don't have your lifestyle marker from before, but it's definitely very good. So, okay, so that's an interesting one. And do you take any hormones at all? Any hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah, I take all of them.
Okay, so you take your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone.
Nandrolone and NP-thyroid, and DHEA,
Okay.
and pregnenolone.
Okay, and can you just walk me through your estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, and in what form do you take them?
Yeah, the progesterone was 90 milligrams, and then after I switched to high omega-3 diet, I've been playing around with it because it was making me sleep too deeply. So somewhere around 65 milligrams. And the estradiol, I was taking 4 pumps. I have to go get it's a cream. And I've reduced that just to 1 at the moment.
Okay, and that's all because of this diet. So because of the high omega-3 diet that you had to reduce the estradiol?
Yes, the switch to a very, very high omega-3 diet with very low omega-6 made me more sensitive to all my hormones. And it also made me more sensitive to the food I eat. I can now maintain my weight very easily. I thought for sure yesterday I was going to wake up and have lost weight, and I did not. It's amazing.
Stefan, I don't know if you are here, but do you check your mom's estradiol level in the
Yeah,
blood?
it's
Is that
always very
something you
low.
do?
She can't tolerate very much of it. When she describes 4 pumps, that's 0.7 milligrams per ml. So if she's doing 4 pumps, that's the dose. Her estradiol levels are always, I would consider suboptimal. Her estradiol level will measure maybe 30 or maybe 25 or 50 in the blood. So I think it could be higher, but she cannot tolerate any
Yeah,
less.
yeah.
We went to
And
Epcot, and that morning my period started. It was horrible. I can't, all of a sudden I was too sensitive to the usual estradiol that I took, and I had to just cut it out because that just really throws me for a loop. That period starts.
But wait, so Stefan, has men always been insensitive, and has it always estradiol been suboptimal, or is it in this period that she switched?
She, I believe, is a poor detoxer. I think she has MTGFR mutation, so she's very sensitive to everything we give her. So she requires much lower doses of anything you give her.
Okay, fine. I guess if your hormones, especially sex hormones, here, as I said when we talked about Thomas's result, if your estradiol is not optimal, and in many women's cases, it's not actually optimal, and it takes quite a lot of time to titrate it and find the right dose. But usually, for that reason, this youth tends to suffer the most. So, how in Thomas's case, we talked about mainly testosterone and growth hormone. in us women, youth mainly is related to estradiol. Progesterone, not so much. There has to be some in the system. Testosterone also needs some in the system, but actually, what makes this youth go up or down will be estradiol. So maybe, the case now, because of the fact, obviously, so what Stefan said makes sense. But maybe even with this high omega-3 diet that you tried, which made you even more sensitive to things, and maybe that also impacted how you respond to hormones, and how, what's the dose that you can take and be fine. Maybe that's something that actually had a negative effect on the youth, and that's something that would drive your GlycanAge to be higher than maybe what you expected. Because so Shield is great, youth is so. This mature is a bit higher than what it should be, which is interesting considering you said you have low visceral fat level. Are you how is your metabolic health here? So, we talked about sort of insulin and HbA1c in case of Thomas. Do you know your data by heart?
Yeah, so her ApoB was quite high recently. We checked it. Her ApoB was about 200. So
Okay.
I don't think she's metabolizing her fats very well. I think she was potentially eating too much peanut butter at the time. Her A1C has been slightly elevated as well, and the fasting glucose has been elevated as well on a couple of occasions. And in her family history is strong diabetes connection.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and the genes.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So that kind of makes a bit more sense. And body composition, DEXA, maybe have you done for Lynn?
Yeah, her DEXA is good. A little bit of osteopenia. Her muscle mass could be better. She doesn't have visceral fats, so it's not bad, but I don't think she trains hard enough to grow enough muscle to
Mm-hmm.
properly metabolize glucose and store it as glycogen.
Okay. Do you would you say this is true, Lynn? I mean, I know that you said you walk a lot, but I guess here we're talking about resistance training.
Yeah, I guess if I had more energy, I could work out more. I'm always
Mm-hmm.
I did hang and I do a couple of pull-ups 6 minutes a day. I would say that's the main exercise I get. And then I work out a little bit. I'm kind of focused on not getting injured, just like slowly working on things.
Okay.
She doesn't train very hard. The pull-up is not a real pull-up. I mean, she does a chin-up and she holds it, which is good, but
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't do like reps and sets to produce
Okay.
hypertrophy of the muscle.
Okay. Yeah. I hear you. Okay. And protein intake, that's the other component of trying to build muscle. Would you say that you're doing okay with protein, Lynn?
I measure my fish and I eat 300 grams every day of fish just to make so I can grow muscle. That's for sure. I'm absolutely doing that because I measure it.
How much is that per body weight?
I'm 111 pounds.
And how much protein?
I don't know. I
Do
figured
you
that
have
out with AI.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
needed 300 grams of fish.
Yeah, because I guess, it's if we kind of try and put it very simplistically,
About
then
80 grams of
we
protein.
80 grams. Okay. And sorry, your weight is in pounds?
111 pounds.
Okay.
5 foot
So you're
some.
basically, let's just see. So, okay, so you're kind of hitting like a 1.5 gram per kilo of
Probably
your weight,
less,
which,
66
yeah,
grams.
yeah, or something. Yeah, that should be. So I guess if you combine that with, proper resistance exercise, and that would really be, what Stefan was saying, trying to push for reps, first building on hypertrophy, and then strength and so on, and power 2 to 3 times a week, that would definitely help with osteopenia, and if there is some sarcopenia. So I guess that's kind of the messy component there. I wonder maybe if it would be worth adding some creatine to your supplementation routine simply to kind of give you a bit of a boost of energy to before obviously your exercise routine, but then also maybe to kind of to fuel you that way, and then see if that has also just a general effect of
I had
making
been
you feel.
taking I had been
Okay.
taking creatine every morning, but I've had to last month I've had to cut back on a lot of the vitamins because they were making me nauseous. I was suddenly sensitive to all of them when I went on the high omega-3 diet. I could try to add the creatine back in, but it if it was supposed to make me powered at the gym, I don't know if it I don't know if it was doing that or not.
Yeah, I guess sometimes it's different, not different, but difficult to know what effect something has on you when you take quite a few things at the same time. So maybe if you try introducing one thing at a time, and yeah, perhaps sort of where you stop, that would definitely be higher on my list anyway. Yeah, just trying to think in terms of trying to boost you with energy. Would you
Could do
say sleep is,
IV.
yeah,
We could do IV NAD drips or IV NR drips for you. That'd be good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
With my
Mm,
sleep, I for quite a while I've been waking up tense. And I've been trying to try different things to get rid of that tension. Yes, magnesium and potassium help, but they don't like remove it. It's caused by something else, and I'm I'm trying both changing my salt and cutting out carbs after
mhm.
11 a.m. to see if that will help with that tension.
Okay. But do you feel, so despite the tension, do you feel like refreshed when you wake up, or does the tension
Well,
take over?
the big positive for me is that I can sleep all night. In my 50s, I
Okay.
used to wake up at 2 a.m., couldn't get back to sleep. I sleep all night. It's very nice now. But no, once I wake up, I mean, there's no tension as long as I don't overeat carbs. That's the main thing about my mood, keeping the carbs down.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Um, but I guess, yeah, I think there should be some kind of a shift to, yes, trying to build more muscle, which, yes, we can get through this continuously good intake of protein, which I think you pretty much do have,
Yeah.
but
I think
you are missing that exercise
I think
component.
this whole intolerance to carb thing is a sign that she needs metformin or berberine. What do you think?
Have you tried berberine at all before
Yeah,
like at any
that's
point?
just that sort of thing just turns my stomach, and I need to maintain my weight. I very difficult to maintain my 111 pounds, and if I eat something that turns my stomach, I mean, I do not want to lose any weight.
Mm. Yeah, so you have tried both of these before, both of these compounds.
No, she's not.
Yeah, berberine is just something that turns one's stomach. I've never tried
You
metformin,
never tried
but
it.
once again, that's for people who need to lose weight. I mean,
No, no.
Well, yeah, so well, not quite right. I mean, those two compounds are used in many different cases, and I think there is definitely a point to what Stefan is saying, which is trying to optimize the utilization of utilization and distribution of glucose in the muscle and trying to build more muscle. The only thing I would be kind of a bit wary of with metformin, Stefan, which is not always the case, but sometimes I think the research points to both of these points, is that sometimes you can have both a negative effect of metformin on the muscle tissue, so actually having a negative effect on hypertrophy, but in some cases it has a neutral effect. So I think that's just, if you go down that route, just something to bear in mind. But if you are then, on the borderline, A1C being a bit higher, fasting glucose being a bit higher, then you are trying to lean on, lower carb diet. But if that's not something that is helping you and it's not making a difference, then you probably do need some additional support. But I think before all that, I think it would be worth trying to do, trying to just start with some proper resistance exercise first, especially if you try either of these two compounds. But you have to have some other source of trying, not a source, but a way to support your metabolic health a bit better. Yeah, and I think that is probably what is driving this mature to be a bit higher. The only other thing I'm seeing here is this kind of this median. You see, this median number is a bit low, and it's sitting in the orange zone now. As I said to Thomas, this is something we see that can reflect a genetic predisposition to these glycan stuff not being quite so good. And the second thing it can tell us, and this is specific to women, it can tell us a bit about the predisposition to cardiovascular and cardiometabolic disease, which Stefan mentioned you do have in the family. So that is probably maybe one other
No, we
different
don't have
aspect.
We don't have any heart problems in the family, and I have a CAX score of 0.
Mom, she's talking about cardiometabolic. I mean, there's Alzheimer's, there's diabetes, there's 2 diabetes.
Yeah. Oh,
you guys do have
well, that we've got. Oh yeah, nobody can handle sugar. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you kind of pair that, so obviously sometimes we are limited by what the genes have given us. Not to say that everything in the genes come true, but your genetic predisposition at the end of the day still matters. So I think based on this is probably something that is not helping your GlycanAge in a sense. So you have to do more than Thomas.
I would say my entire life, even when I was age 12, we would go to the mall and all we could afford was a cookie. And I'd eat the cookie, and then I wondered why they didn't have places for people to lay down at the mall, because it just made me feel exhausted. And that was at age 12. So I've never been able to handle sugar, but that's what we ate. And I always wondered why they didn't have places for people to lay down for a while. Because if I laid down for a while, then they'd be fine. They didn't have that at the mall.
Yeah. But that's kind of, what you said at the start, that you and Thomas do pretty much the same things. But this is kind of where being, coming obviously from different families, having different backgrounds, having different genes makes a difference, right? So not to say that that's fair, but I think that's just a fact that you probably have to do a lot more than Thomas is doing to kind of try and be at his level, maybe from the point of view of metabolic health, for example. So I think that really all of this that we talked about now explains maybe why your GlycanAge is not 50, but it's sort of closer to your chronological age.
I was thinking, yesterday I thought, well, I'll cut out the big carb I've been having every day after my 300 grams of fish is a banana. And with some raw milk. And so I cut that out yesterday, and I just had fish and egg. And that's why I thought overnight that I would lose weight, but I did not. So I'm going to try that, just cutting out all the fruit and cutting.
Mom, hold on. I think you're missing the point here. I think the point of this is that when you have more muscle, it controls your GlycanAge, it controls your appropriate utilization of carbohydrates, so you're not so sensitive to these things. That is the point of this.
Yeah. So you're basically trying to make more room to metabolize carbs better, because at the end of the day, and this is something we see with GlycanAge, is that when you go full on in terms of elimination of a certain type of a food, or when people go on no diet, first of all, it's not sustainable in the long run, and then second of all, it's also not healthy. So what we would like to try to do in your case is try to have you eat some of the more complex, low GI index carbs, but then at the same time, not to have that in too much of a quantity, but then try and counteract that with more muscle mass. But then at the same time, even on top of that, you might need some additional support, which is why I think it is useful to talk about, yes, metformin for sure.
Yeah, and a banana is not a low glycemic index food either, Mom. She's talking
True.
about sweet potatoes. She's
Yep.
talking, more complex carbohydrates than a banana.
Yes. Yeah. And there are some foods that have a more favorable, lower GI index. So I think it's now for you to obviously get, a bit more familiar with that. It doesn't mean that you're not going to eat any carbs at all. And I think actually that can also have a negative impact on your metabolic health. But I think for now we're trying to balance it all a bit better. But first and foremost, yes, include some real resistance exercise into the play. How does that sound, Lynn?
This sounds great. Is this so? The GlycanAge test, I think I'm going to order it more for my patients to demonstrate how important the muscle connection is.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can tell you. So if I have, and this is something I see quite often, so people who kind of, seem to have okay body composition, in terms of like fat, body fat percentage being okay, even visceral fat, but then you kind of scan them and you see that they're basically sarcopenic. They're usually quite surprised when they see this mature index not being so good.
I hang 6 minutes a day.
Yeah.
I have arm muscles now.
You have good grip strength, but there's other parts that are lacking.
Yeah. So it tells you a lot about all of these different things, but I would say, body composition, metabolic health, loads, and glucose control, insulin sensitivity, Okay. Any final questions? I will have to go because in 2 minutes I have another call. So any last questions?
It's
More
fantastic.
than
Thank you
welcome.
for this.
Not
Thank
a
you very
problem
much.
at all.
Excellent.
Not a problem at all. I will
Good to
send
talk
you
to
a
you.
summary with all the main action points for both of you, both Lynn and Thomas. And you, Stefan, if there are some questions, you have my email, so just feel free to email me.
All right, great.
Okay,
Very
cool.
good.
Enjoy
Thanks.
the rest of your
Bye.
day. Bye.
You too.